The HOA president pulled a 6-inch kitchen knife on me over a parking spot, screaming she'd cut me to pieces if I didn't move. Then I called my dad, County Judge Harrison. 3 years prison later, she lost everything while I still park wherever I want. Some spots are expensive. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The woman was already reaching for the knife in her purse when I pulled into the parking spot. She'd been circling for 10 minutes. "Get out of my space right now," she screamed, waving the blade at my windshield, "or I'll cut you and your fancy car to pieces." She had no idea she'd just threatened the county judge's son with a deadly weapon in front of security cameras. I was pulling into the parking spot at Riverside Shopping Center when I heard tires screeching behind me. A white BMW had stopped in the middle of the parking lot, and a woman was hanging out the driver's window screaming like her hair was on fire. That's my spot. I was waiting for that spot. I looked around the busy parking lot, confused. There were at least 20 open spaces within 50 yards, but this woman was acting like I'd stolen her life savings. I got out of my car and walked toward her, planning to politely explain that parking spots work on a first-come, first-served basis. That's when things went from ridiculous to dangerous. The woman jumped out of her BMW with something glinting in her hand. My blood ran cold when I realized it was a kitchen knife, about 6 inches of steel that she was pointing directly at my chest. "I said get out of my spot," she screamed, waving the knife like a conductor's baton. "I've been circling this lot for 10 minutes waiting for that exact space, and some punk kid is not going to steal it from me." I backed away slowly, hands visible, trying to process the fact that someone was threatening me with a deadly weapon over a parking spot. "Ma'am, please put the knife down. There are plenty of other spaces." "I don't want other spaces," she shrieked, stepping closer with the blade. "I want that space because it's closest to the entrance and I deserve it more than you do." That's when I got a good look at her. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, perfectly styled hair. This was a woman who'd probably never been told no in her entire privileged life. "Ma'am, I'm going to move my car, but you need to put that knife away before someone gets hurt." "Someone's going to get hurt if you don't move right now," she snarled, jabbing the knife toward my face. "I'm Patricia Morrison, president of Willowbrook Manor HOA, and I don't take orders from children who don't know their place." Children who don't know their place. That phrase hit me like a slap, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about de-escalation anymore. "Ms. Morrison, before you threaten me further, perhaps you should know who you're talking to." "I don't care if you're the president's son," she spat, still waving the knife. "Move your car or I'll move it for you." I pulled out my phone and made the call that would destroy Patricia Morrison's world. "Dad, it's Mike. I need you to send police to Riverside Shopping Center immediately. A woman named Patricia Morrison just threatened me with a knife over a parking spot." Patricia's aggressive confidence flickered when she heard me say, "Dad," and "police" in the same sentence. "Tell them to bring everything," I continued into the phone. "Assault with a deadly weapon, terroristic threats, and probably mental health evaluation." "She's still holding the knife." "Dad." Patricia repeated weakly, but she was still brandishing the weapon. "Judge Harrison's office, County Courthouse." "Yes, my son is being threatened with a knife." "Patricia Morrison. Willowbrook Manor HOA. Send units immediately." Patricia's face went white as she realized the implications. "Judge Harrison? You're Judge Harrison's son." "That's right, Patricia. You just threatened a county judge's son with a deadly weapon in a public parking lot. How do you think that's going to work out for you?" The knife was shaking in her hand now as the reality of her situation hit her. I didn't know." "So threatening people with knives is okay as long as they don't have powerful fathers?" "I wasn't really going to hurt you," she said desperately, but she was still holding the weapon. "Patricia, you're currently pointing a 6-inch blade at someone while screaming death threats. That's aggravated assault regardless of your intentions." The first police car arrived with sirens wailing, followed quickly by 3 more units. The sight of Patricia Morrison standing in a parking lot with a knife while I stood 20 feet away with my hands up told the entire story. Officer Rodriguez stepped out of the lead car with his weapon drawn. "Ma'am, drop the knife immediately." Patricia looked at the knife in her hand like she'd forgotten it was there. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to get my parking spot back." "By threatening someone with a deadly weapon?" Officer Rodriguez asked, moving closer with his gun trained on her. "I wasn't threatening anyone," Patricia insisted, finally dropping the knife. "I was just showing him I was serious about the parking spot." "Ma'am, pointing a knife at someone while screaming threats is the definition of assault with a deadly weapon." As they handcuffed Patricia, she looked at me with pure hatred. "You ruined my life over a parking spot." Patricia, you pulled a knife on me over a parking spot. I just called for help. Detective Williams arrived as they were loading Patricia into the patrol car. He'd known me since I was a kid and his expression was grim. Mike, are you okay? I'm fine, Detective. Patricia Morrison decided a parking space was worth threatening someone's life. Parking space? She pulled a knife over parking? She'd been circling the lot for 10 minutes and felt entitled to the first space that opened up. Detective Williams shook his head. In 30 years of police work, I've never seen anyone escalate that fast over something so trivial. It gets worse, I said, pointing to the security cameras mounted throughout the parking lot. The whole thing's on video. The security footage was devastating for Patricia's defense. The cameras captured everything: her aggressive driving, jumping out of her car with the knife, threatening me repeatedly, and continuing to brandish the weapon even after police arrived. But the most damning evidence was the audio. The security system had recorded every word of her threats, including her statement about cutting me to pieces, and her claim that she deserved the parking spot more than I did. The charges were filed within hours: aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, terroristic threats, and disorderly conduct. The prosecutor added an enhancement for using a weapon in the commission of a crime. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue that it was a mental health episode brought on by stress, but the security footage showed clear premeditation. She'd retrieved the knife from her purse specifically to threaten me. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later, but Patricia's case collapsed when the video went public. Local news picked up the story of an HOA president threatening a judge's son with a knife over a parking spot, and the coverage was brutal. Parking lot Karen pulls knife on judge's son became a viral sensation that made Patricia Morrison a national symbol of entitled rage and criminal stupidity. The video of her waving a knife while screaming about parking spot entitlement generated millions of views and spawned countless memes about HOA overreach and privileged behavior. But the real consequences came when Willowbrook Manor residents learned their HOA president was a convicted felon who'd threatened people with deadly weapons over parking disputes. The emergency HOA meeting was chaos. Residents who'd paid premium prices for homes in a safe, upscale community discovered their leader was mentally unstable and criminally violent. Patricia, you pulled a knife on someone over a parking space? One resident asked in horror. It wasn't about the parking space, Patricia replied weakly. It was about respect and community standards. Community standards don't include threatening people with kitchen knives, another resident shouted. The vote of no confidence was unanimous. Patricia was removed as HOA president and banned from all community property pending the resolution of her criminal case. But her legal troubles were just beginning. The knife attack triggered investigations into her HOA management, revealing years of financial irregularities and abuse of authority. Patricia had been using her position to harass residents she disliked, inflating maintenance costs to fund personal expenses, and taking kickbacks from contractors for overpriced community projects. The embezzlement charges were filed 3 months after the knife incident. Patricia had stolen over $200,000 from HOA funds while terrorizing residents who questioned her authority. Her sentencing hearing was held 8 months after she'd threatened me in the parking lot. Judge Morrison, no relation despite the name, was not sympathetic to her claims of stress and mental health issues. Ms. Morrison, you held a position of trust in your community and used it to steal money while threatening residents with violence. This court sentences you to 3 years in state prison and restitution of $247,000. The civil lawsuits came next. I sued for assault and emotional distress, settling for $150,000 when Patricia's insurance company saw the security footage. The Willowbrook Manor HOA sued for embezzlement and mismanagement, ultimately recovering $180,000 from Patricia's assets and insurance policies. But the most expensive consequence was the class action lawsuit filed by residents whose property values had plummeted after their community became known as the place where the HOA president pulled a knife over parking. Patricia lost her house, her savings, and her reputation. She moved to another state after her release from prison, but the viral video followed her everywhere. 2 years after the parking lot incident, I was shopping at the same Riverside Center when I saw a familiar white BMW circling the lot looking for spaces. For a moment, my heart rate spiked as I remembered Patricia's knife-wielding rage. But this was a different driver, a calm, normal person who found a space, parked politely, and went about their business without threatening anyone. I parked in the same spot where Patricia had attacked me, and as I walked toward the store, I reflected on how that one moment of entitled rage had destroyed her entire life. A parking spot. She'd thrown away her freedom, her home, her community standing, and her future over a parking spot that she could have found elsewhere in 30 seconds. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Saw on the news that Patricia Morrison was arrested again for threatening a store clerk over a refund. Some people never learn. I smiled sadly, thinking about how privilege and entitlement can twist someone's mind until they think violence is an appropriate response to minor inconveniences. Patricia Morrison had pulled a knife on a judge's son over a parking space and spent the rest of her life paying for that moment of explosive stupidity. The security cameras were still there, still recording, still protecting innocent people from the Patricia Morrisons of the world who think weapons are appropriate tools for getting their way. Some lessons are expensive, but they tend to be permanent. Patricia had learned that threatening people with deadly weapons has consequences, even if the victims look young and powerless. Especially when those victims have fathers who wear black robes and sign arrest warrants for a living. Justice. It's not just about courtrooms, it's about making sure knife-wielding parking lot terrorists understand that violence has consequences, no matter how entitled they feel.